It seems like it's been 40 weeks since you got 40 winks. Your back pain? Unbearable. Tossing, turning, trying to find that pain-free position. And that's the moment you realize you can't spend another waking moment putting off treatment.
The Joint and Spine Center is Cincinnati's leading destination for spine care, with a ton of surgical and non-surgical treatments for back pain. So when a moment has the power to change the rest of your life, go to the one place with the power to change it for the better, the Christ Hospital Health Network. This changes everything.
The Pound This podcast is brought to you by Sway, artfully crafted, ready-to-drink cocktails from Mad Tree Brewing. This is episode 766, Hitting the Trails with Cincinnati Off Road Alliance.
I want to lose weight, but I don't know how to get started.
What should I meal prep every week?
How do I get those sweet booty gains?
Inspiration for your healthy lifestyle. The Pound This podcast with Amanda Valentine.
Hello, friends. Before I get into this fantastic conversation with Liv and Jason, I want to tell you about my friend Sarah and Team Fit With Me. If you're looking for a great health coach that has a whole team of coaches with her, Sarah has got your back with Team Fit With Me. Jeanette's recently been on this podcast. That's the mindset coach on Sarah's team. Personal trainers. Sarah is a whiz with macros and helping you learn about nutrition. If you have any sort of autoimmune disease or hormonal issues, Sarah can help you work through those. So whether you want a better understanding of your body and what's going on, learn some things, and whatever your goals are, whether it's weight loss, getting stronger, or just getting into a better mindset, Team Fit With Me can help you out. And right now you can get 10% off month one of all packages and plans when you go to teamfitwithme.com/poundthis, and you can find that link right now in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening to the Pound This podcast. I am Amanda Valentine, joined by two guests today. We have Liv Birkenhauer, the president of Cincinnati Off Road Alliance, and Jason Reeser, who is the trail development staff. Hello, how are you guys?
Hi, great. How you doing?
We're great. Our trails are dry. Everybody's been out enjoying this beautiful weather that we've had.
Yes. I'm very excited to chat with you guys so I know that you're focused on trail work and mountain biking here in Cincinnati, and I have never been mountain biking in my life, and it scares me very much. So, I definitely want to get into that, but I want to know more about kind of your background, how you got to where you are, and what you do. So I'll start off with you, Liv. How did you get to be a part of CORA and where you are today?
It started with a trip on vacation with my family. And my younger brother, at that time, this was in 2000, asked me if I wanted to try mountain biking down in North Carolina. And I was like, well, I'm not sure, Frank. And at that time, I was still a pretty avid basketball player, athlete, my lifelong, and still playing. But he talked me into it. I came home and bought a bike a month later and have been riding ever since. And loved it, just fell in love with the aspect of exercise, of course, but also now exercise in the woods. So I think that was the catch for me. And how I got involved with CORA was in about 2012, I really started getting more into the mountain biking, racing, joined the board because I wanted to give back to the community and the trails that I used so much. And then decided to become an instructor because I wanted to be able to teach other people, like you'll be ready to learn how to mountain bike soon, and kind of take them through that. So joined the board in 2014 and then have just progressed through the executive office in the past couple years.
Awesome. What about you, Jason?
Oh, my story goes back even farther. So I got started in the early 90s. When I was, I think, 6th or 7th grade, I had a staph infection in my leg and ended up in Children's Hospital for a long time. And my friends got into biking. We lived out in the country. And they got kind of a nicer bike and started using it in the woods around our house where we lived. You know, people use quads and and there are different farm roads out there. And so they started riding around, and they gave me the magazines while I'm sitting there in the hospital for a couple weeks in the summer. And when I got out, I couldn't wait, and my folks took me out, got a nice bike, and kind of never looked back. My brother moved back from New York City, and he was into biking, and so we'd go on biking adventures together, and then we got kind of sucked up into the trail organizations, even back then, trying to build trails and work on trails at Tower Park and and other places around the Cincinnati area. So, and from there, I ended up working in bike shops and ended up, having a bicycle shop in Newport. So I've been doing that for a long time and still being involved with trails, and been very fortunate to be able to spend the time to make more trails and help make events and things happen here in the Tri-State.
So do you own a bicycle shop in Newport?
Yeah, Reeser Bicycle Outfitters.
I bought a bike there this weekend.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's so funny. So my backstory with bikes is when I was growing up, I had like a banana seat Huffy. And I mean, I was doing tricks on this thing. I loved it, like no fear. And then I got a 10-speed, and 2 weeks into just learning this 10-speed, bad bike accident. They just re-rocked the road, and a volleyball came out in front of my bike as I was meeting a friend, and face first just down the road and just shredded me. Like you can see my kneecap, like it was bad. And so I've had a fear of bikes ever since then. And then when we lived in Denver, my husband got me a cruiser bike because he's like, oh, this is no fear. This thing you have to, is like your Huffy. Like you can do this. And I tooled around on that a little bit. I did a little bit last year. I'm like, I'm going to bust this thing out. I want to ride a bike. I'm like, wouldn't it be cool to ride the trail to like Columbus and back? Like aiming very big for a person that doesn't ride my bike that often. And I was riding it around Lunken, and just on being on that, like, having no gears, I'm like, oh, this isn't any fun. I'm like, oh. So this weekend I was started looking at like Facebook Marketplace and kind of getting ideas for something. I'm like, if I want to do this, I want to get like a real bike I feel comfortable on, and Reeser is where I went. Because I've been,
it's great.
I've been to the coffee shop
because
the coffee shop is like trail focused. So whenever I first moved to Cincinnati from Oregon, I was like, oh my God, this place is so cool. So I went there and I bought a hybrid bike. So it's not a mountain bike. And I've been practicing on that the past several days, although my butt's not doing so great.
Oh man, yeah.
But that's where I'm like, I know that I was going to, which is amazing. And I actually saw pamphlets for CORA there, and I was like, oh, look at that. And I had no idea you owned that place. How cool is that? Yeah. But so that's where I'm at, where I'm like, I just want to feel comfortable. I want to be able, and which is, by the way, is a huge difference having a bike where I understand like the gears and it feels way different. Right. But I'm like, well, so that's where I'm at, is like baby level, I feel like, anyway, to be like going to mountain biking, which I think sounds so fun because I love hiking. Like I love that I can exercise in nature, which is why my experience with trails is just lots and lots of hiking, because I want to be outside and I also want to exercise. But then I feel like if I did that on a bike, I would be so worried about just crushing my face into a rock. Like, it just seems really scary. And maybe you guys can talk me down off of that. But I'm like, oh my God, I can't imagine going down a hill on a bike on rocks and roots and stuff. I just feel like I would have to get dentures.
No, it's a great question, and a lot of people feel that way. And that's why one thing I would say is if you take some basic skills, some foundation, we teach like bike body, how you move around. So when you are going down on those rocks and roots, you're in the right position. So your hips are back when you're going down the hill. If you're climbing, your chest is on the bar, but really getting out of the saddle and knowing where that center of gravity, where your weight should be, is all the difference in the world. And then just even braking and basic skills for the beginner.
So do you find that a lot do you have a lot of people come to you as you are the ones maintaining these trails and putting together these programs and fundraising for these programs, that people are like, this seems really cool, but I'm too afraid to take that, to jump into this, kind of like where I'm at?
Yes, we do. And we have. And that's really how in 2016, I went to get a certification, because I had a lot of women coming to me. And by then I had already been racing for a couple years. Like, how do we do this? And I thought I should really know how to tell them the correct thing. I kind of knew because I had been riding and racing some. So I went to get certified to be what you call a ride guide. But then I was hooked and got certified to be an instructor to teach skills. So to teach you how to go over those rocks and roots, to teach you how to do pedal punches and wheel lifts and things like that. So we do also have a lot of clinics. We'll do a women's clinic, and it's a fundraiser for our Houston Woods during our camp out in the fall. And so that's more focused for getting more beginners out and teaching those skills, and then taking them on a trail together so they have that confidence when they're with people. And we do what we call sessioning. So practice going over that log or route or down in that dip.
Okay. And how many, do you just do that once a year?
We do that one once a year, but then I actually have a company called Got Dirt Mountain Bike Training. So I do clinics throughout the year, and I have private sessions that I offer.
Okay. So
Yes.
how would, if I, obviously well, first off, does a bike come included, or do I have to go buy a mountain bike too? I just bought a bike.
Yeah, actually, a lot of times I can find somebody a bike if they want to do a private session. I have more than one bike because I have to.
Yeah, because I that's where it's like I would like to try it to see if I like it, but I don't want to go make a large money investment.
Yeah.
Which is why I made the money investment in getting in a hybrid bike of like, oh, well, I want to do mostly like commuting, and I can hit a dirt trail if I want to, but I'm not, I don't think I need shocks or anything at this point because I've never done it before.
Yeah, and that's smart. And we start on a very beginner-friendly trail. And we do have another women's clinic coming up at the end of May, actually, and that's going to be the 28th. And we're trying to work out having some bikes available to rent. So I can let you know on that one, too.
Okay. So then what kind of trails, what trails do you take like ownership of or you claim in Cincinnati? I know that you have like a map on your website. What are the ones that you're kind of like, we're going to put our stamp on these trails within town?
It's a lot of the trails that we have built over the years. So we don't really own trails, but we maintain them. We built them for the park, we built them for the public, and then we maintain them as well. And so we have trails at several of the state parks, Houston Woods, Cedar Creek, East Fork. We also have trails at some of the local parks like Tower Park in Fort Thomas, Taboo Park in Covington, and one of the great parks in Cincinnati, Mitchell Memorial, and a few others. So you can find that on our website, coramtb.org or coratrails.org. You can go there, and we also have the current trail conditions. If it's rained recently, they might be closed or slightly muddy. And we try to get people to use them when they're drier and they're not going to damage the trail. So we have trail conditions, a map of how to get to the trails, and even a description and a video. And there's different there's different types of trails on there too, like beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So you can kind of find the right places to go to.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we were just discussing before we started recording, because I do so much hiking at Mount Airy Forest, and I didn't realize Mount Airy had any mountain bike trails until I saw your website, and I was like, where the heck is this thing at? Because I just have my general little loop there. So, I mean, I will let you describe where it's at in Mount Airy again, because it feels like it took you guys 5 minutes trying to explain to me where it was.
Yeah, we have a trailhead on West Fork Road and another trailhead on Shepherd Creek. So it's in between West Fork and 74. You know what Putt's Creamy Whip is? It's right up the road from there. And our volunteer crew has built over 5 miles, and they're just finished up by hand. And that's been almost a 3-year project, I think. And so we're really excited to have that finished. And we have runners, we have hikers, we have people with their dogs on their leash, and we have the mountain bikers. And it's really cool to have that facility right there in the city now.
And that has been a partnership with Cincinnati Parks, and we're continuing that partnership with building a skills area up in the main park past the tree house in Area 23. And that'll be a beginner-friendly skills area for kids of all ages, and it'll also let mountain bikers progress so that they can then go and get on what we call intermediate trails after the beginner. Also, we'll have a 1 mile almost loop around the skills area that will be very beginner-friendly and adaptive cycling ready. And then what we call a flowy trail that will then take them down to the other 5 miles of trail. So looking to get a lot more users into Cincinnati Parks, and especially Mount Airy, to make that a little bit safer experience for everyone.
Yeah, because for me, as far as hiking goes, Mount Airy is my go-to and my jam. And it feels like I'm kind of the person, I've gone to like business meetings at Mount Airy because it's like, oh, I don't ever want to go there, but you know where you're going. I'm like, come on, let me show you. And I'm like, turn here, turn here, turn here. And so it's like, I get to be the little guide of Mount Airy. So I love that there's like a new thing to explore. But being a person that has done trail work before and knowing, you know, what it's like to be a volunteer and do all of that, I think it's really important to note that you guys are a nonprofit and these things pretty much don't exist without fundraising and donors, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we really rely on our members and different donors in the community to help us so we can, you know, have these volunteer trail days, buy all the tools, and even, you know, have some pizza afterwards, or whatever. And then also, you know, for some of the larger projects, to have a professional trail builder come in and build the trails, put up signage, you know, put up bridges, all those things, you know, they cost money. And you know, so trying to get that all together and maintain that, you know, we have huge volunteer crew, and we have, you know, a lot of generous donors. So we're really...
Yeah, and we've done some fundraisers before, and we're looking at a lot more events to come, because as outdoor recreation, especially, has gotten bigger, especially after, you know, you were on the trails with COVID, you saw a lot of new trail users. So looking at where can we put more trails, but also, you know, putting those signages up and things like that, educational pieces, those all cost money. So we've done Trailblazers Ball in the past, and that's helped us raise money. We're looking at possibly doing a big bike expo event and some races at some of our local trails to help them raise money for additional trails, and sometimes just rework of an older trail as they've aged. Sometimes they need a lot more work done to them. And then the other thing that our volunteers have really helped do, and if you get up to the Cincinnati Off Road Alliance trails in Mount Airy, you'll notice that we've really taken care of the invasive species and gotten rid of the honeysuckle, so you really are able to see that beautiful forest again when you're on the trail versus just a wall of honeysuckle.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of those things that why I've done trail work in the past is I think that people just take advantage whenever you do want to go and be like, I'm going to spend the afternoon out with family or friends, and you go walk or run a trail or you ride your bike, that all the maintenance that takes and how Mother Nature will take that over like in a blink if you let it. And so as much as I was on the trails and I did that as a form of exercise and to meet friends when I volunteered for the Pacific Crest Trail, I'm like, whoa, like, and you really don't get too much done in a weekend when you just take a section of trail, and whenever you're sawing down trees and building water bars and just cleaning up the brush and all that, like, you know, just poison ivy and all that stuff, where it's like, wow, it gives you a whole nother appreciation for whenever you can just go for a walk in those spaces for the people that like want to maintain it. And and also for the people listening to this, as you know, I'm assuming you're always taking new volunteers, that it is like, I don't know, it's very rewarding. I think any kind of volunteer work is rewarding, but for people that do want to have that exercise, want to spend the time outside and have the, at the end of the day, be like, wow, I can see what I've accomplished. I'm helping other people able to get outside and enjoy nature and get their own exercise in whatever way they choose, and then have a pizza party at the end of the day. It's just like a really cool way, I think, to spend your time. And that's when, at least I've done like volunteer weekends on trail work. Like, it doesn't feel like you're working. It feels like it's just like a different version of hiking and your own kind of fun.
Definitely. And we'll say it's a full body workout most of the time.
Yeah, it definitely is.
The other thing we're trying to do, you know, working with the invasive species and really working with a lot of our parks, the environmentalists in those parks, is to really become more of a green partner in helping them to control that when you say cut back and so forth. So looking really at what's the sustainability of the trails and working to get those invasive species removed out of the forest areas where we are stewards of the trails.
Yeah, mountain biking and trail use is really, you know, green recreation. You know, it's very low impact overall, and we're seeing, as we cut back the honeysuckle, some of the you know, the wildflowers that they come back right alongside the trail. So it's really cool to see that happen where there was nothing before, where the honeysuckle is just choking everything out. So we're happy to have so many people want to come out and help take back the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really, we had an event, Earth Day at Tower Park, and we had our CORA booth set up there, and it was very refreshing. They had so many trail runners and hikers and dog walkers come up to us and say, oh, thank you so much. I love the trails. They're in better shape than they've ever been. But the really great thing was a few of them said, how can I help? So in the past, a lot of times it was mountain bikers on our trails days, but now that we've started to get our word out and the story out, we are seeing more and more hikers and trail runners join our trail days, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's great. So you said you already have some future plans for things in the works at Mount Airy. Do you have other future plans and trail work going on at other spots in Cincinnati?
We do quite a few, and Jason really is close to those. Davoo, I'll let you talk about that, and Fox Run, and some other projects.
Yeah, so we do have, we've raised some funds and worked with the city of Covington as well, and they've received a big grant from the R.C. Durr Foundation. So we're looking at adding about 4 miles of new trail into Davoo Park and some more access points and amenities there. That, right now is going through some legal work, but that should be they should be breaking ground on that in 2023. We're also looking at working with Kenton County and Kenton County Parks. They had a golf course called Fox Run. They had 3 golf courses next to each other, and they kind of came to a realization that they should focus on making 2 of the golf courses better, and then turning the 3rd golf course back into a park. And so we're looking at working with them on bringing in some trails there and different amenities to that park. And we also continually looking at opportunities throughout the city to create more connections, close to home for people. So right now, a lot of folks have to drive to a trail or, hike or bike, to hike or bike. And so we're trying to make trails that are, maybe in your neighborhood. So, hopefully making some trails along the Little Miami River, looking at different opportunities in different Cincinnati parks to make neighborhood connections, to connect, if you're familiar with the Crown and trails, that are the paved trails and the Wasson Way that Tri-State Trails has been working on. We want to extend the reach of those trails in the neighborhoods, and we can do so with our natural surface trails that we build at a lower price, a little easier to get into more places. So we might be able to connect a small neighborhood up that, would cost a lot of money to, put in a 1,000-foot paved trail for 50 houses or 100 houses, but for a gravel or a dirt trail would be quite a bit less. So we're looking at a lot of those opportunities to really connect the city, connect parks, connect trails, parks, neighborhoods, schools, places where people work. Just try to make more of an active transportation network and have some of that, roll through the woods, because we do have a lot of woods, a lot of hillsides here in Cincinnati.
And one of our main sayings, our tagline is really trails closer to home, because we want to remove those barriers for people to go out and hike and bike out in nature. And so that's a big drive for us. How can we get more of these pockets of these trails through the woods and then connect them so that people can get easier access to them, especially in the urban areas. And that's the great thing about Mount Airy. And we would like to continue to see that, around the Little Miami corridor, but also in northern Kentucky. We're looking at connections there that we can make and get into the neighborhoods. And then the other thing was, a lot of people we find when we do that in other cities, what they've found is then you also get people that use those connections to and from work. So you also have a safer route to school, to work, to use.
Yeah, that's why this weekend I just walked the newest section of Wasson Way to kind of see where they're slowly kind of getting all that together to link everything up. And I think that's going to be really cool when that section of trail is done to lead into that, what is it called? The Little Miami Trail? I always want to call it the Loveland Trail.
It is the Little Miami Trail, but a lot of people from this area, because I think the main part of it started in Loveland. So that goes way back.
Yeah, that's where initially when I moved to Cincinnati, like where my main entry point on that trail was, or I think that's where I just associated there. But I think that's cool. But it's also kind of living on the west side of Cincinnati, it really connects to nothing. Sorry, west side, but there's not any of that like intricate trail or just even walking. And so that's why like Mount Airy is my go-to, because I couldn't even think of, like, at least in the section of town that I'm at, of like where else you could build good like bike trails when I feel, even like for me as a pedestrian, there's not sidewalks on a lot of the street. So it's like, it's not even like pedestrian friendly, much less jumping into being bike friendly. And also from living in two very bike friendly states, from living in Colorado to Oregon, where my husband's main mode of transportation was his bike, to moving to Cincinnati, he's like, I'm going to die. There's definitely a different vibe whenever you're doing like the street commuting on a bike in Cincinnati than a city that is kind of like more around, like everybody kind of commutes on a bike. It is the same thing. I find nothing against Cincinnati. I love you, Cincinnati. But as a pedestrian or on a bike in a city center, it can become a very scary place. I've almost died several times just walking downtown.
And that is really why we're always advocating for and working with some of our partners throughout the city to advocate for safer pedestrian and safer bikeways and bike paths. And I'm also the Kentucky Bicycle and Bikeway Commissioner, so doing the same thing in Kentucky. Where can we make some bike paths? And I know they are working on some things on the west side. Great Parks has been involved with Cincy Parks. It takes a while once they announce things, as we find even building our trails. You know, we started on the Mount Airy, as Jason said. Even the skills area raised those funds like 3 years ago, and now, you know, hopefully in the next 9 months we'll start to put a shovel in the ground and make the trails. So, but we are working on that and recognize that it is something that we can do better.
Well, and I think that's why it's great to have those sections like in the woods and off trail of like, if you do, you're like, again, the barrier of like, I feel like I can't hop on my bike and safely roll around a OTR because of drivers, then I'm like, oh, well, then let me go somewhere that is designated, where I'm like, if there's a car driving onto my bike in Mount Airy, there's a very large problem. I'm like, I could feel safer riding my bike in this designated area. So it's awesome that, you know, you guys are finding so many of those places and taking care of them and getting this out to more public knowledge, so people that, you know, listening to this might not have even considered any sort of mountain biking, but are looking for something different and looking for something to go outside, to now that they know how many resources they have just within the city of Cincinnati. I think that's just amazing work that you guys are doing.
Thank you. And two of those initiatives, Little Miami Corridor and Northern Kentucky, we call it right now Green Line, those are all about making more connections out into neighborhoods. And that'll be a lot of natural surface, so dirt, but it'll also be some gravel. So we will also get a lot of folks like yourself that could be on a hybrid or what we call adventure bikes. So it really opens up the whole outdoor recreation world to more people too. And of course, strollers, because if it's a gravel, it'll be a crusher lime gravel. So strollers and hiking on those too.
So if somebody is listening to this and they want to volunteer, or they want to do some sort of like donation fundraising, or they just want to know where they can get on their bike, or find of like, you know, where those classes for beginners, where do they find all of the information?
Yeah, you can definitely jump on our website at CORA, MTB, CORAM, it's in Mary, T is in Tom, B is in boy, .org, and we have a calendar on there. We also, you can sign up for our email list. You can also, you know, make a donation, and you can see some of the projects that we're working on. So a lot of the stuff that is in the works is listed there. And we also have, you know, the full list of trails and Facebook, so you can see, you know, the different events and find out when there's a trail day, and you know, if you want to go out and get your hands dirty. And that's one of the funny things about that, like, we provide on-the-job training. To know what you're doing, you just show up and you say like, hey, I'm ready, and you know, bring water, bring gloves, bring some boots if you have them, or some off-road shoes, and we will you know, get you going and teach you about, you know, trail maintenance.
And
right
we
there.
also put we put all of our group rides on there. So for instance, May 7th, it's International Women's Mountain Bike Day. We'll be doing a group ride and really try to get more beginners out so that we're out on the trails with them. So those different events are also on our calendar and on our social media pages.
Awesome. Well, Liv and Jason, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. And again, appreciate so much what you're doing. And I'm going to have to just get more practice on my bike and then have to graduate to mountain biking, and we'll probably be very slow.
I look forward to that. You just reach out to me when you're ready.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for your time, Amanda, and hopefully we'll see you out there on the trails.
Definitely. Thank you.
AmandaValentineBites.com